USF2000 program here in the USF Pro Championships. Always exciting, and yesterday's run here at the Honda Indy Toronto, unbelievably wild. A wet start, and the drivers going to dries very early on. Those moving to the dry tires were able to capitalize. Folks, my name is Rob Howden, the voice of this USF Pro Championships, joining by one of the drivers who was able to make it happen. Went to dries early, Logan Adams for J. Howard Driver Development, your second weekend in the program. How does it feel to be on the podium here to start the weekend?
I can't even put it into words. It's amazing. All the way down the back straightaway after the checkered flag, I was just, yes, just yelling in my helmet. I was ecstatic.
The crazy thing coming off the first weekend in Mid-Ohio, right? You were strong, you were fast, but you got collected in a couple incidents that weren't your own fault. So the frustration there, to be able to come out and stay away from those incidents must make you feel good.
Yeah, of course. It got close a few times, but luckily we were able to make it through. And hoping for the same thing tomorrow. Obviously wrecks happen, but if we can make it through it, then we're off to a better race than most of the guys, right?
Let's talk about that race yesterday. Obviously crazy. When you came in and went to the dry tires, what were your thoughts on that? What was it like when you first rolled out on track?
So they came over the radio and asked me, and I said no initially, and then he said, well, let's do it anyway. So we pulled in, switched the tires. When I first went out there, I was driving it, and I was braking at the 500 going into one. Yep. You're typically going to the 200. So I was a little nervous. I realized I had a lot more grip than what I thought. I started pushing the car, and it was definitely the right decision. After about a lap, the tires came up to temperature, and yeah, Jay definitely made the right decision with that one.
Yeah, Logan, not the only driver that said that he did not want the dries, but was decided to go to it. The team owner did it. Same thing for Simon Sykes. He didn't want the dries either, but his engineer said, let's do it. We talk about today's race now. You've got that podium finish. How much different do you feel coming in, knowing that you've proven to yourself you can get the job done?
We got lucky today. We came from 13th and we finished third, starting the same spot tomorrow. If weather goes our way, then it's going to be a little bit more tough to get up there, but we're definitely confident going in tomorrow. Know that we have the speed, know that we can get up there. It's just about if everything goes our way.
This track, what do you think about it? Do you like the facility itself? We know it's different, much different. Maybe running some of the karting events you ran when we had the walls, like a SCUSA Super Nationals. What are your feelings running this kind of concrete canyon circuit?
It's a blast, honestly. You feel like you're going 300 mile an hour the whole time. You're getting this close to the walls. You're getting an inch away from them. So it's a blast. I really enjoy it. You know where your limit's at. You can't go past the limit. You can't drop a tire. So you got to be on your game the entire time, and you got to know, I got to brake here. I got to get on the gas here. There's no questions about it. So you got to be confident in your own ability. Confidence
is something you have to have. And every time we have a new driver in this program, we see them have a breakout race. This weekend here, the breakout for Logan Adams for J. Howard Driver Development. A podium yesterday. He'll be working his way from deeper in the field. He'll be a driver to watch coming through the field. And speaking of that field, when we get back after this break, I'll give you a full driver lineup. Here. This category brought to you by Cooper Tires. The second rung of this USF Pro Championships, the young driver starting in USF Juniors, moving up to USF2000, from there to the USF Pro category, and then on into Indy next, and eventually, if all goes well, the NTT IndyCar Series. Once again, back at it here in Toronto. A little bit of rain through the evening and into the early morning. We have ourselves a wet racetrack, so we may be looking at another transition from wet to dry for the drivers here in USF 2000. 18 of them getting set to roll off to go racing here, and we are about 3 minutes away from firing things up. Let's have a look at the grid very quickly here right now. Starting at the tail of the field, Max Garcia in the number 24. He'll be alongside Joey Brienza in the number 91. Garcia on the podium yesterday, but he's going to have to come from the tail of the field here today. Row number 8 on the outside for VRD Racing. It's Gordon Scully in the number 19, and on the inside, the Texan Maxwell Jameson from D-Force Racing in the number 12. Row number 7, Avery Towns, the Texan in the number 93 for Exclusive Autosport, starting 14th and starting 13th inside of row number 7 out of Greenfield, Indiana. Third place yesterday after a fantastic call from his crew to bring him in to get those dry tires. Logan Adams in the number 9 machine, starting 13th. Row number 6, we'll have Elliot Cox, another Indianapolis driver, the number 67, starting on the outside for Sarah Fisher Hartman Racing Development. On the inside, George Garciarce, the young Mexican driver for D-Force Racing Racing in the number 10, set to roll off from 11th. Into the top 10 now, it'll be Sam Corey in the number 14 for VRD Racing, the North Carolina driver, starting 10th. Inside of that driver will be Lockie Hughes, multi-time winner in the program, third place in points right now. Hughes out of Australia for J. Howard Driver Development. Row 4, Chase Gardner, the Texan for Exclusive Autosport in the number 95, starting 8th. And Campbellville, Ontario's own Mac Clark for D-Force Racing, last year's USF Juniors champion in the number 1, starting in the 7th position. Good top 5 finish for Mac yesterday. He'll look to aim for a race win here today. Row 3, out of Indianapolis, Al Morey for J. Howard Driver Development in the number 7, has developed himself into a strong top 10 runner throughout the season. And from Toronto, Nico Christodoulou, who was battling for a race win yesterday, the VRD driver, will start here, P5 in the number 2 machine. Row number 2, Nikita Johnson, just 15 years of age, one of the VRD drivers, currently second place in points out of Gulfport, Florida. A winner at St. Petersburg earlier this year. He'll roll off from P4. Alongside him, the young New Zealander, Jacob Douglas for Pabst Racing in the number 23, starting in 3rd. 18 drivers in the field, 2 on the front row, off pole. Winner at Mid-Ohio, looking for his second victory on the season. Out of Ohio for J. Howard Driver Development, the 6 is Evagoras Papasavas. And the driver who will bring him to the green flag here to start the race number 2 of the weekend out of Augusta, Georgia. Your point leader for Pabst Racing, Simon Sykes. Winner yesterday, looking to capitalize on it here again today. Sykes in the number 22, starting on the pole position. Sykes and Papasavas on row 1, Douglas and Johnson on row number 2. Time to fire things up and get these drivers rolling. 170 horsepower behind each one of these drivers, all on elite engines. Joining us now down on pit lane to fire things up for the command to start engines, the general manager from Goodyear, Canada, Gus Leota.
On behalf of Cooper Tires, drivers, start your engines.
Engines coming to life as the fans continue to trickle their way into the grounds here at the Honda Indy Toronto. Again, my name is Rob Howden, the voice of the USF Pro Championships. Joining me in the booth here today, the voice of this event, Todd Lewis. And Todd, we expect to come here maybe and have some dry racing. In Pro yesterday, we went the other way, dry to wet. Wet to dry for USF2000. Could we see it here again? The track is very damp, as we know, only 68 degrees trackside. We don't quite have our dry racing line yet, but it could come a time late in this run that we may see guys come in for tires.
As you watch both the USF2000 and the USF Pro 2000 races yesterday, you saw how quickly the line changed from wet to dry or dry to wet. All of the drivers leaving now on the wet Cooper tires, heading down to corner number 1 to try to generate some heat into them. I walked around a bit of the track early this morning. It is very damp. It's not that hot temperature-wise here. It's humid. I expect we're going to start to see some dry areas pretty quickly, but does it translate to a dry racing line? Does someone want to take a chance later on in this race maybe and make the move to dry tires if the cautions fall and permit such a move?
One of the key things, too, is it's not raining right now, but almost like there's a little bit of a mist. I have a report from pit lane, maybe a light kind of a little bit of a sprinkle. If it's just enough to keep it wet, that we may see that. And again, one of the interesting things is seeing how this track potentially could dry. We talked about the humidity. That's not going to help at all either. It's not like it's 80 degrees. So right now we're going to be going wet. But again, as we know, once we get these 18 drivers powering around this racetrack, slipping and sliding, eventually we could get ourselves with a dry line. Simon Sykes, your point leader in the number 22. A big race yesterday for him, coming home with the victory. Those challenging him finishing significantly farther down the order, so he has been able to stretch his points lead to over 50 markers as we again have only one more race weekend for the drivers here in USF 2000. They will now wait after this weekend here in July all the way to Labor Day weekend at Portland International Raceway to find out who comes away with a scholarship worth over $433,000 to move from this category up into the USF Pro 2000 class. For Simon Sykes, as they work their way around the track through turn number 5, it is really all about his career right now. He needs to win this championship to keep moving forward. Landed himself a ride with the juggernaut Pabst Racing this year. Big opportunity for him right now.
Certainly is, and starting from pole position here today, you know he'll want to get away as quickly as he can from Papasavas, Douglas, Johnson, Christodoulou, and the rest. Great story with Nico Christodoulou, who's starting 5th, had himself a very good run in yesterday's race, his first event this year in the USF Pro 2000 series. Matt Clark, you mentioned as well, another Canadian who's looking for a solid run today.
That's it. Both those drivers, one out of Campbellville, one out of Toronto, actually up near Vaughan for Christodoulou. They want to make the impression here on the home race. We hope to see Christodoulou at more races. He actually is focusing on the GB3 series in Europe this year. Time to go racing. Sykes and Papasavas on the front row. Augusta, Georgia for Sykes. Loveland, Ohio for Papasavas. New Zealand for Jacob Douglas in the 23. And Gulfport, Florida for Johnson in the number 17. Visibility will be very low going into turn number 1 as we're going to get that spray. Luckily, the rain is not falling right now, so they will be able to get a quick handle on the conditions. One more lap around before we go back to green. Probably a good call. Give these drivers, number 1, a chance to get some sighting laps around the racetrack, build a little more heat into these tires, and really kind of give them a feel for where the grip levels are.
Just going to mention that is a good call by the officials. An extra lap to pace around just to see, because there are some, as we mentioned, damp areas that are going to generate a little bit of spray. You can see it even now at caution lap speed, that there's a little bit of spray coming out of corner number 2 on some of those cars. It'll get even greater as they head down towards corner number 3. And the change in surface as well, from asphalt to concrete and sometimes back in one corner. That concrete is very slippery. It gives the drivers just a little more time to gather information.
Very interesting yesterday talking about it as well. Obviously, we knew that the dry line had developed very quickly. We had exclusive Autosports Yuvan Sundar-Murthy in the booth with us yesterday, our USF Pro 2000 driver and a multi-time winner in USF 2000, telling us, hey, you're going to see guys go to change tires very quickly. But the funny thing is, I talked to a number of the drivers back in the paddock after the race, and every one of them, when their team came on and said, you think it's time to go to dries at the very start, they all said, no, I want the wets. It was the teams that said, listen, we're going to dries anyways. And the driver is spun. Driver around coming out of turn number 4 over to turn number 5. Not quite sure who that is here. Could be the number 93 of Avery Towns that's gone around. Not quite sure. A couple drivers have had some issues. Al Morey, potentially the number 7, has fallen to the tail. Now, that's not Avery Towns. I believe that may be one of the VRD drivers who's gone around. Again, this is the opportunity for drivers to find the pace. That could be actually Nikita Johnson, scheduled to start in 4th position. He may have gone around. And whether or not he went around, whether there was potential contact with drivers kind of weaving back and forth, as you see, he is still right in the middle of the racetrack, and at this point, maybe not able to fire. So we are going to, I believe, likely stay yellow. And I'll tell you this right now, we will put lap number 1 in the books. Although we didn't get the green, we did start the race and start the clock. So this will be lap number 1 coming around here, and an issue for Johnson, we believe. An issue potentially for the 7 of Al Morey as well, being told here by race control. So we'll find out exactly what's shaking down here. So here's a replay. Watch for the driver coming up here 4th onto the throttle. That's all it took. You can see the thing already starting to go around. Yep. So just got on the throttle a little bit right there, and around it went. That's a really good indication, Todd, early on of the low grip levels coming out of 4 over to 5.
Would precarious be a word that you would use to discuss the conditions here? It does look damp. It does look though the entire track is wet, but you don't really get an idea of how slick it is, especially when you have the wet tires on. You don't have as much rubber contacting the track surface. You're trying to generate a little bit of heat into them. It's very easy to spin these cars around. It's
funny. I said a number of drivers in the paddock after the race, and they'll say that the conditions yesterday were at the very start were unbelievably slippery. This track, when it's wet, is extremely hard to drive, second only to Mid-Ohio. As they said, Mid-Ohio very tough to drive in the rain. John Phippen, the voice of that track there, always calls it diabolical. That's the word he uses for Mid-Ohio in the rain, and I think it kind of translates to the track here at Toronto as well. Again, this isn't a racetrack, right? 362 days out of the year, these are city streets. This is commuter traffic, and then the transition from that pavement to the concrete, which is unbelievably slippery. A number of new areas of concrete around the track, new pavement around the track as well. I'm finding this very interesting. They've got the quick jack out, the AMR IndyCar safety crew there for Nikita Johnson, but he's going to lose a lap here right now. This is the driver's 2nd place in points. Again, everything here in Toronto and even Mid-Ohio playing into the hands of Simon Sykes, who wants to try to pull away and win this championship in Portland. He was not able to get the car refired. They had to use the quick jack to bring him around. And again, Nikita Johnson's going to lose a lap right now. They're going to try to get him back into the area to potentially refire. In fact, they're just pushing him right now. It's not like they're even, I don't know that there's any damage.
I didn't notice that he touched anything. I didn't think he hit the wall, but it does look like they're moving that car out of the way and trying to get a look and see if the rear tires are maybe an issue.
The only potential could be the left side of the car. Did he have that issue coming through? Could be gearbox issues too. You never know, right? There could be something happen to the car. Again, a quick spin like that, maybe a half shaft broke. or something, coming out of the corner, all of a sudden the car snaps like that. Maybe it wasn't grip level. Maybe it was the fact he only had drive in one side. Maybe only the drive on the right side of the car. The minute he went back to power, it looped around. So a potential gearbox or transaxle issue here for Nikita Johnson. Again, the AMR IndyCar safety crew will push him back into the area outside of turn number 5. No need for the wrecker. So we're going to put at least 3 laps, I believe, because they're going to come back around they're putting lap number 2 in. So, yeah, it's going to be 3 laps already done by the time we go to green, which will be next time by.
That will only add to the sense of urgency for some of these other drivers. Maybe try to reel in Simon Sykes a little more quickly. Again, you have to be cognizant of the conditions, understand that your braking points are going to be a little bit different as you approach some of the corners and want to make a pass. All the spray you're going to have to deal with behind Simon Sykes, who's going to lead them to hopefully green the next time by. It's setting up for a bit of a charge here in a short race.
Yeah, in the short term, we're talking about a wild race here. Like you said, shortening up the race, drivers further back in the field are going to have more of a sense of urgency. If you look on the macro level, long term, this for Simon Sykes is huge in terms of the championship battle. 2 drivers who came into this race 40 points back, tied for second with 271 points, were Nikita Johnson and Lockie Hughes. Hughes had an issue yesterday, got into the wall. He finished well down the order. Nikita was a top 10 finisher yesterday. Now it's Nikita having an issue. He's going to finish 18th. Lockie Hughes currently running in the 7th spot. This is an opportunity for Sykes, who comes in here with a massive advantage, 55 points, the lead for Simon Sykes coming into the day. And again, you think about the driver who's right there with them, Nikita Johnson, now tail of the field. This is huge for Simon Sykes. A 100-point lead leaving this weekend would have given him the lock championship. That won't happen, and not enough points on offer for that. But the bottom line is Simon Sykes in the driver's seat right now to grab that scholarship, continue his career with a prize of over $433,000.
Drivers wanting to focus and get ready for the start. We'll wait and see if the pace car does make the dive to pit lane this time by, or whether we're going to have to make it. He has, and it looks like we're doubling up for the start.
We're going racing, folks. Sykes, Papasavas, row 1. Douglas, Christodoulou, row 2. Clark, Gardner, row 3. Everybody kind of getting themselves into the place they need to be right now. Remember, Johnson was supposed to start P4. That's going to allow, I believe, Gardner in the number 95. Right now, he's leaving the gap. Obviously told by race control to leave that position open. He will get a free run down into turn number 1. We are set to go. Race 2 for USF2000 is green, green, green. And how about 6 wide down into turn number 1? And one driver's gone off the outside. Papasavas has got into the wall, and Gardner straight into the barriers as well. So Evagor's Papasavas and Chase Gardner, your outside row, 2nd and 6th place starters off the racetrack in turn number 1. Both drivers overcooking it, coming down into a wet turn number 1. Simon Sykes will take the lead. They'll let this thing go green for at least a half a lap for things to cycle out right now. Good start up there. Moving into 2nd is Jacob Douglas. Everybody else working their way through turn 3 cleanly. 2 drivers, as we know. No, there's a couple drivers. 2 Jay Howard drivers together further back. I believe that might be number 1 for sure is Al Mori. Not sure who the other driver is. Potentially Logan Adams in the number 9. Contact coming out of turn number 3 as they roll back on the throttle. They'll work their way down to turn number 6, 7. Now over to turn number 8. We'll see how things shake down. We are still clean and green. You wonder whether or not Gardner and Papasavas able to get themselves out of turn number 1. So we have not yet gone full course yellow. So we may be racing. Maybe the drivers further back able to continue on. All right, so drivers still in there into the corner. We'll see what's happening. Getting some, of course, reports from race control that the drivers are still on track, otherwise getting rolling. So right now we're clean and green. So the drivers who had issues tied in turn number 1 continue to roll. We'll give you a full field rundown as they come across the line. Sykes is your leader. Bit of a gap over. Christodoulou runs in 2nd. Douglas 3rd. Clark to the inside in 4th. Lockie Hughes runs 5th. Sam Corey 6th. Elliot Cox up to 7th. Gordon Scully, George Garcia and Max Garcia from dead last up to 10th. Drivers involved: Al Mori, Logan Adams, Chase Gardner, and Evagor's Papasavas on the opening lap.
Difficulties for those drivers, but opportunities for others to move up in the field and take advantage of others' mistakes. You called it, and we saw it yesterday in the USF Pro 2000 series. It's the first time into the corner when your braking zones change a little bit, the track conditions are different, and sometimes it's the leader. It wasn't in this case with Simon Sykes, but sometimes the driver ahead of you goes a little too deep, others follow him in, but now we're starting to see things settle down just a little bit. And again, huge opportunity, huge jump for Nico Christodoulou, who's up into second spot. Great opportunity for Matt Clark as well, who's up into fourth. We saw those two battle head-to-head yesterday. Maybe we'll see it again.
And if we look back at yesterday, we saw the restart when they went wet for the drivers at USF Pro 2000, and it was Miles Rowe, who was the first driver at speed down into turn number 3. He overcooked the braking zone and went off. That gave the win to Michael D'Orlando, who was able to kind of gauge his braking zone off of what Miles was doing. On this time, instead, we're a 2-wide start. Guys in the front row, both drivers with no one to gauge off of. So let's have a look at the replay first of turn number 1 and what happened. Papa Savas, I think you're going to see to the far right of the screen, driver's left comes in. And again, in there, the braking zone, there's no way. He's carrying way too much speed in. Look, you can see he's got the wheels turned. He needs to release those wheels to be able to get the car to turn. He taps the wall pretty aggressively. Same goes for the number 95 of Gardner. He's too deep into the corner. He's following the lead, of course, of Papa Savas. He goes too deep. He gets into the barriers, the tires, and was able to pull back and continue. So the driver starting in second and sixth had issues. Here they are coming out of turn number 3. I think you're going to see Logan Adams potentially. No, I think Logan gets tapped from behind. Indeed, as he comes through the corner there, he gets tapped. Garcia potentially, does he have any wing damage? Wondering whether or not either throttle on spin for Adams or contact from Garcia coming out of turn number 3, and then I believe just throttle on spin for Maury a little higher up on the racetrack.
In addition to the difficult braking zone in corner number 3, going down from the top speed on the circuit here at Exhibition Place down to a very slow corner, that is an uphill rise. Yes. That's pretty significant coming through corner number 3. So again, modulating the throttle, making sure you're getting maximum drive is part of the problem.
That's it. And you're trying to get back onto that throttle to get through 4 over to turn number 5. We saw a couple of drivers have issues with that as well. So both drivers able to continue, thankfully, and they're all back onto the racetrack right now. What do we have further back there? Maury in 14th, Papa Savas 15th, Adams and Gardner 16th and 17th, respectively. Max Garcia, really the driver on the move right now, just made a move around the outside of Corey, so that he started dead last at 18th in these tricky conditions, playing to the hands of the 14-year-old out of Florida, Max Garcia, the number 24 Pabst Racing driver, Advanced Auto Parts, the sponsor on the side of the race car. He has worked his way into the top 5. What a drive right now for Max Garcia. Again, Todd just 14 years of age. Wasn't able to start the season. He was only 13 during the weekend of St. Petersburg, so he had to wait, exactly. He had to wait until Sebring at the end of March to be able to start his USF 2000 career. But as we see for so many young drivers over the years, midway through the season, the Road Americas, the Torontos, is when the Mid-Ohio's, when the drivers, the rookies, kind of get rid of those rookie stripes. You know, they've run the oval already. They've run a street circuit. They've run a natural terrain course. They've been at Indianapolis as well. So this is when we see the rookies really become more, they're still freshmen, but you expect to see them run very well. As that's the number 14 of Corey who's gone off. So Garcia gets by Corey. He has trouble in 8. That allows Cox to come through for P6, but not surprising right now to see Max Garcia kind of settling in.
It is, and you talk about the progression of drivers making their way through the season. That's the great thing about following the USF Pro Championships is whatever it's USF Juniors, USF 2000, or USF Pro 2000, you see the progress through the season. Sometimes it takes a driver an event or two to find their way, but then their confidence begins to build. Sometimes with a little success, maybe it's a podium finish, maybe it's that first victory, but watching them progress through the season, and we're near the end of the season for the USF 2000 series.
Garcia was obviously one of the most aggressive drivers yesterday. At the end of that one, made a move to the inside of Matt Clark to grab second away. Clark got pushed back a little bit. Right now, he's closing up now onto the gearbox of Lockie Hughes. Again, Hughes, a multi-time winner on the season. In fact, won at least one race at the first 4 events on the season. And Garcia putting the pressure on the Australian now. That's the fight we're watching here. That is for 4th and 5th. Lockie Hughes in the J. Howard Driver Development number 8 and the Pabst Racing number 24 for Max Garcia. Up front, though, his teammate Simon Sykes looking to go back-to-back here in Toronto. How huge would it be for him to be able to get those victories? Was able to win in the back end of the doubleheader as well at Mid-Ohio. So, again, Sykes looking to get things rolling. Cox has had a bit of trouble. No, he's okay, but he did go a little deeper into the braking zone. You can see still how hard it is, Todd, to roll that power at a turn number 8. Every time those drivers come out over top of that concrete, they're being so ginger on the throttle and try to get back on the power. grip levels are not getting any better right now.
No, especially in corner number 8, as you mentioned, with the concrete to asphalt and the transition back and forth. You can see how slick it is. Some of the other areas on the track, it's not quite forming a dry line. I don't think we're going to get that far during this short race, but you can see that it is improving. But other areas, just depending on where the water settles, always at the lowest point, you're going to find some very slick areas, and you still see a significant amount of spray coming down Lakeshore Boulevard.
Here comes Garcia, big run coming down through turn number 2. He'll look to the inside now, coming down to the bottom of the racetrack. Hughes should be able to run the outside line and get good grip, but no, it's done. Book it to the inside. New driver to P4, Garcia. So move Max Garcia into P4 as he's trying to chase now down the 2 Canadians who run 2nd and 3rd. Sykes up front P1, but Nico Christodoulou runs 2nd. Mac Clark now in 3rd spot, but 2.2 seconds between Clark and Garcia last time by. So still a long way to go on a 20-lapper. We're 8 laps in. We'll put lap number 9 in the record books when they come back around. You can see the gap now between 3rd and 4th. Oh, Garcia really the fastest driver on the racetrack, one of the fastest. He and Christodoulou down into the low 24s. A 124.2 last time by for Christodoulou, a 124.3 for Garcia. Clark not that far back, 124.4. So these drivers putting good lap times down right now. But again, 13 seconds slower than they were in the dry. So this is definitely a full wet race from start to finish.
Must be all that driving in those summer Florida rainstorms that's given Garcia all that extra experience. I'm joking, but it's serious that it does. It's every lap they go around, they gain a little bit more experience on the conditions and how to deal with the wet.
And here's where we go back to, where does the driver grow up? So he's a South Florida guy. He races a lot at AMR Homestead Miami Motorplex, a karting track right outside of the racetrack at Homestead. And I'll tell you, it rains almost every day there. They're used to that like 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock storm that blows through. And again, if you're a young Florida driver and you get the rain, get out there and drive, because this is when it pays off. So many times a young kart racer, a fair weather driver, it's raining, I don't want to go out and practice. That's when you need to go practice, because when the opportunity arises like this, you get a chance to shine. You can see Max Garcia putting on a show right now in the 24, all those wet racing days, those wet practice days down at Homestead.
For some of the European drivers, a similar situation as well. They have more rain races sometimes that they will compete in through Europe, and that's, again, why they will focus on the USF Pro Championships. It is the path to success to get to an elite level of open-wheel racing. They bring that experience with them. They can find their way through to the scholarships, hopefully, and progress their career.
Anytime we have a young driver from England or Ireland that we know has potentially run the Formula Ford Festival, where it rains at least one time during the weekend, you expect, hey, this is the driver we think is probably going to be fast. Lundgaard, obviously very quick European. He was the quickest driver yesterday, was able to leverage very tough conditions. Oh, big moment there for the number 12 coming through that corner. Wow, that was a sketchy one there for Maxwell Jamison. Had to correct and pointed that thing at the wall of turn number 8. He's being chased right now by Avery Towns, who's having a great drive, the young Texan. SCCA Formula Mazda and Formula X experience for Avery Towns. Big jump into USF2000 for him this year, and he's really been improving. Avery's done a great job. A tremendous young man outside the car, is very, very well spoken and getting quicker and quicker. Currently running now in the 11th spot. Here's a quick top 10 rundown for you as we're now at the halfway point. Sykes leads, Christodoulou and Clark in 2nd and 3rd. Garcia losing a bit of time there last time. 3 seconds from Clark back to Garcia. Lockie Hughes runs 5th. Elliott Cox, who had a rough day yesterday, got an incident early on in the run, the first lap. He runs in the 6th spot. 7th position, Sam Corey. 8th, George Garcia Arce. 9th, Jacob Douglas. And 10th is Maxwell Jamison. 11th, Avery Towns. 12th, Al Mori. Papasavas now back up to 13th. Gordon Scully, 14th. Joey Brienza, Logan Adams, and Chase Gardner rounding out the 17 drivers. Still on the racetrack, as we know, Johnson, some kind of potential gearbox issue out on the opening lap.
Yeah, an unfortunate break for Nikita Johnson, who was one that did have a bit of an outside chance at maybe climbing back into the championship after this weekend here in Toronto, with only the triple header left in Portland. Keeping an eye on the front runners as well. Nico Christodoulou has clawed back a little bit on Simon Sykes. Matt Clark also closing in a little bit, and Max Garcia as well. Everybody tightening up that battle up at the front, and I'm we're going to see some more aggressive racing as we move on.
Yeah, listen, Matt Clark's the guy who wants to win here. The key hit right now is everybody's closing up to Sykes. Matt Clark was a half a second faster than Simon Sykes last time by a 1:23.8 for Sykes, 1:23.3 for Clark. And even Chris Dedew a little bit quicker as well. This is 1, 2, 3, wet weather racing at its best. There is Garcia trying to climb the curbing in turn number 5, trying some new angles there. Normally we would say stay away from the curbing because the paint on those curbs is very slippery, but there are times you can kind of shortcut the course coming through there, get on top, and kind of climb, kind of hook the car around the corner a little bit.
And again, it depends on the surface of the curbing as well. It's different from the asphalt. Sometimes it does benefit you to climb a little higher up.
Look at this. A great run here for Elliot Cox in the 67. He's thinking about a top 5 finish. He watched Garcia run down Hughes, and he wants to do the same thing. So again, Garcia right there, 4th. Hughes 5th, Elliot Cox in the 67. The Sarah Fisher Hartman Racing Development Machine pushing hard as your top 3 go through turn 1.
Tightened up a little bit there at the top again, a 10th or 2 quicker by Chris Dedew and Clark than Simon Sykes. Nice to see Elliot Cox having a pretty strong run here too. He's had a very difficult weekend so far.
A difficult year, Todd, to be honest. There have been incidents that he's caused a couple himself, but he's been also involved in the ones that were not of his doing at all. A racing incident yesterday between he and Logan Adams. I watched the replay on that, and they were kind of both coming into the little bit of the kink there, and they got together. He ends up in the wall. And again, for him, he needs a good result. Want to come out of here, get this weekend in Toronto wrapped up. Potentially top 6, top 5 finish would be great for young Elliot Cox. And, of course, look forward to the finale in Portland. That's 1, 2, 3. Chris Dedew. Again, his debut here in 2023 in the USF Pro Championships has been racing over in the GB3 series in Europe. And again, a number of wet weather races, more of a normalcy over there as opposed to we have here. He is putting a ton of pressure on the VRD machine. And here's one thing to point out as well. One of the great calling cards of the USF Pro Championships, Todd, is the fact that we have so many fantastic teams. The parity in the paddock. 3 different teams right now running in the top 3. Paps Racing with Sykes, VRD Racing with Chris Dedew, D-Force Racing with Matt Clark. So great to see so many teams there in the top 3. 13 laps in, this time by. And again, top 3 drivers, you can see they've gapped themselves a bit on Garcia. That move forward kind of has stopped from dead last for Garcia. Remember, started 18th. Other drivers having issues. He was able to pull forward, made a great move to eventually get by Lockie Hughes. So Garcia seemingly have peaked here on at 4th. We got some great racing further back. One of the drivers coming forward as well. Chase Gardner trying to dig his way forward, although he is a lap back. So Gardner, I believe, did lose a lap. So although he's in the middle of a scrap and passing a bunch of guys a lap down, he's going to end up finishing in the 17th position, barring any other incidents. The fight continuing just outside the top 10. Al Morey moves himself up. Remember, Morey had that spin over in turn number 7. He's got himself back up into the top 10. Papasavas following him up as well. Those drivers to 10th and 11th now. Jamison now runs 12th. Avery Towns 13th. Joey Brienza in 14th and Logan Adams 15th. Gordon Scully there 16th and Gardner 17th. Your leaders again into turn number 8. And I'll tell you, a lot of pressure being put on by Chris Dedew, and really that's all you can do, Todd, for Nico. Put as much pressure as you can on Simon Sykes. Try to force an issue. Sykes, as we know, the championship leader, so he doesn't have to win. He wants to win. But again, Chris Dedew trying to force that error.
He has cut the lead down to under half a second from Simon Sykes. We'll watch as they come across the start-finish line again and see, yes, he has cut in a little bit further. It's now under 4/10, and Chris Dedew is pushing that car hard. You saw through corner number 8 that he sort of slid the back end ever so slightly. He's trying to hustle as much as he can just to stay in the mirrors of Simon Sykes. And right now, Sykes has a little bit of a gap. He can look back. He can see that he's not under an immediate threat as he approaches one of the corners and one of the best passing zones, and then try to focus out front and not worry about what's behind him.
Yeah, I think Matt Clark sitting there P3 is just hoping that the guys up front try to battle. He needs Chris Dedew to get up there on Sykes and potentially make a move that he could kind of capitalize on, because right now he's fallen back to about 0.8 of a second back. He still has over 2.5 seconds back to Garcia, who runs in 4th. Lockie Hughes kind of mounting a re-challenge here. He turned to the fastest lap last time through as a 1:22.6. He's a half a second faster than Sykes right now, Lockie Hughes. So that car starting to come in a little bit. You wonder whether or not we're seeing less spray. Let's put it that way. So the track is drying out a little bit. That's going to help on grip. So we'll see if everybody dials things in. Again, for the drivers, Todd, it's about reacting to the changing conditions, right? It was super wet at the start. As it dries out a bit, they're allowed to get back on the throttle. They're going to be testing their limits, right? How can I go a little bit earlier? They're seeing it. They can feel that they got more grip. The car's not sliding as much maybe as it was before. Although, remember, tires will start going away as well.
And it may actually cause the drivers to evolve their line just a little bit. The racing line is a little bit different during the rain and a very wet track. That'll change and evolve as well and maybe create opportunities for someone.
Course correction there to turn number 1 for Krista Dulu. Got the turn in and lost the rear end just a little bit as he turned in pretty aggressively. That's allowed Clark to close back up to within a half a second. There's Chase Gardner again, scrapping it out there with a couple of the drivers from, I want to say that's probably Maury and Papasavas. So they're the drivers that were involved in the opening lap. They're coming back forward, although, as we said, Gardner, I believe, 1 lap down. Is that a pass for the lead, potentially? Let's have a look as they come back through. Indeed, we have a pass for the lead over in turn number 3. Indeed, Krista Dulu has gone to P1, able to get by over in turn number 3. Krista Dulu, the VRD racing driver, has gone to the lead, and he's about to check out potentially now. Is there an issue for Sykes? We don't know. Right now, as they'll work their way down, there is the leader. There's Gordon Scully in the number 19, the leader coming through behind him. So Scully about to get lapped. 5 laps to go, 4 to go, and they come back around. Krista Dulu has taken the lead from Simon Sykes. Sykes now falling back into the clutches here as well of the number 1 of Matt Clark. So we have a bit of a change here.
Here's the opportunity for Clark to seize now as well with Simon Sykes in his sights. He's chasing him in the championship. 2
opportunities, right? We're going to see a replay of the lead change here, and we get a second here, folks. They're getting around Scully, so make way for it. Here it is here. Oh, it's Sykes makes a mistake. An uncharacteristic error as he goes too deep into the corner, has to get the car wound up, and that allows Krista Dulu to come to the inside. So again, what did we say? Push, pressure, consistently put that pressure down to see if you can't force that error, and indeed the error was forced. Sykes overcooking turn 3. Krista Dulu more than happy to tuck to the apex of the corner. He gets through, and Garcia is closing up on Matt Clark as well as these laps start to wind down. Track improving lap after lap. We got ourselves a situation where we could be stacking things up for 3rd, 4th, and 5th.
4th to go, nothing settled yet. Nico Christodoulou in his first weekend this year in the USF2000 series, out front of the leader by 1.4 seconds now ahead of Simon Sykes. Mac Clark in 3rd, and also feeling the pressure from Max Garcia.
Trouble for the number 95, potentially of Chase Gardner on the racetrack. Full course yellow right now. Full course. Drivers will slow behind pace car speed. So an issue on the racetrack potentially for the 95 of Chase Gardner. We'll try to get an update as they work their way around the track, but we will reset things for you as we're going to have ourselves a wild dash. I don't know that it's an incident, being told potentially just stalled on the racetrack for Gardner, the number 95. So Krista Dulu, your leader. Sykes in 2nd, Clark 3rd, 4th is Garcia, 5th is Hughes, 6th Elliott Cox, 7th George Garcia Arce, 8th is Sam Corey, 9th is Douglas, and 10th is Papasavas. Now being told potentially it's actually a crash, and here it is here. Here's the replay. Losing the rear end coming out, tries to recorrect, hammers the right front of the car, left rear wing as well. That is big damage from Chase Gardner in the number 95, as again, he was a lap down, battling it out with a couple of Jay Howard cars, losing it coming through turn number 11. A tough weekend for Chase Gardner, the Texan, for Exclusive Autosport, as they'll park that machine coming out of 11. Man, the amount of damage there, the AMR IndyCar safety crew would have to give us some Herculean efforts to potentially get us back to green. This thing could be done with Krista Dulu as the race winner. Remember, when they come back around, it's going to be lap number 18. We'd have to go green the next time by, and I just don't know with that, the extent of that accident, that damage, whether we're going to go back to green.
It's if you've been with us through the weekend, that hit on the wall was a little bit later in corner 11 than some of the others that we have seen through the USF Pro Championship. Sometimes the driver has clipped the inside of corner number 11, and it sent them to the outside. It looked like Chase Gardner knew that he was getting loose. You could feel it. He saw the correction, and he managed to keep it straight for a little bit, but couldn't fully pull out of that slide.
Yeah, he got through the corner, back on the throttle early, coming out of turn number 10 over to 11, and the thing already slid. We saw similar that with Miles Rowe as well, although in the draw he lost it coming through the corner there, and at that point you're kind of a passenger trying to hold on. It looked like it might have been just right rear impact, but once it hit, the car obviously pivoted, and indeed ends up getting the right front as well. Then I believe the right rear tire shooting back and tagging that wing as well. So Significant right side damage for the car of Chase Gardner, who will finish 17th in the order. Again, I don't know that we're going to be able to go back to green here. Lap number 18 will be put in the books when we come back around. Christodoulou, Sykes, Clark, very likely your podium. Garcia and Hughes, 4th and 5th. 6th, Cox. 7th, Garcia. 8th, Corey. 9th, Douglas. 10th, Papasavas. Maury, Towns, Jamison, Adams, and Brienza to cap off the top 15. We're going to look when they come back onto the front straightaway whether or not the AMR IndyCar safety crew will be able to. They would have to be very close to having that car already up on the hook and get ready to pull them off to the racetrack.
Just watching Max Garcia in the 24 coming through there at a slow speed, and he weaved over to the left side of the track, get a little bit of moisture on those rain tires, try to keep them cool in the hopes that he can get back and still challenge for a podium position.
So very top of the screen, we're seeing the truck with the car. They've got it cleaned up. We may have a one-lap dash.
Fingers crossed.
Wow. They were able to get the car hooked up quickly onto the tow truck. They're backing it into the gap in the wall to the infield paddock. So, yeah, I think that we're probably going to go back to green flag here. This is fantastic work for the AMR IndyCar safety crew. Christodoulou, of course, not thrilled with that at all. He would love to have taken the checkered flag under the yellow, but indeed we're probably lining things up for a last lap battle, and this will be exciting with tricky conditions, low grip. Christodoulou, Sykes, Clark, Garcia, and Hughes ready to scrap it out for the positions on the podium.
Drivers weaving a little bit back and forth along Lakeshore Boulevard, trying to keep a little bit of temperature in those tires. As we mentioned, Max Garcia went through one of the small puddles that you saw off the racing line to just make sure that those rain tires are not wearing out as quickly as they can. So let's hope we've got ourselves a restart and a shootout to the finish. This is big for Nico Christodoulou, who will lead the field back to green for the first time. He's really going to feel the pressure.
Well, the interesting thing is Christodoulou is with nothing to lose, right? He's not in the championship, just a one-off here, likely for the year for him running in GB3 this year. For Simon Sykes, much different. Here he is in second with a chance to extend on the championship again. Johnson, who's second place in points, already 18th in the order. Lockie Hughes, third place in points, back P5. So Sykes really just be smart here right now. Everybody else is going to be aggressive. He just needs to be smart and try to get through with the podium finish to potentially look forward to almost locking this championship down. Clark, though, of course, the pressure for being here in Canada, he'd love to be up on the podium here as well. There's a lot that's going to happen, but let's put it this way again. Track drying again a little bit here and there. We saw this on the restart yesterday for Miles Road. The first driver into 1, the first driver into 3 with these track conditions chasing. Christodoulou's going to set the mark for everybody coming into turn number 1. They'll work their way to turn 8. Single file restart. The pace car, of course, into pit lane. How about a one-lap dash to settle it here in USF2000, the back end of the doubleheader here, the Cooper Tires Grand Prix of Toronto. If you're here early, this is a great place to be. Here they come. We're back to green flag. And a good jump for Christodoulou. The big run down into turn number 1. Hold on, folks. This will be wild. He'll run the full race line. Clark's going to go to the middle as well. Big bomb to the inside. Comes Garcia. They'll work their way out of turn number 1. Are they clean? They are. Side by side, Sykes and Clark, though. Clark on the outside. Sykes on the inside. They're looking for a Canadian 1-2 here in Toronto. They'll work their way down the back straightaway. Clark alongside Sykes. I'll tell you this. If Clark can hold the spot and keep him pinched down, there's more grip on the outside. Clark's going to tuck back to the inside. Here comes Garcia again to the inside. Clark around contact. Clark spinning. Garcia gets into him. Clark tried to come across the bow. Garcia clocks in the 67 with nowhere to go. He stopped as well. Here comes your leaders. That's going to bring Lockie Hughes, I think, up into the second or the third spot, and the 10 of Garciarces up to P4. So chaos in turn number 3. Christodoulou emerges as the leader, and he will very likely cruise it through. Drivers involved in that one: Cox, Garcia, Clark. As Garcia looked to the inside, Clark was coming across the bow. Left front to right rear contact. Both those drivers going around. But through the final couple of corners, it is a Canadian victory in Toronto. Nico Christodoulou, the Torontonian, victorious on the streets of Toronto. The VRD driver wins race number 2. Simon Sykes will come across the line to finish second. What a championship weekend for the driver out of Georgia. Lockie Hughes improves up to third. Garciarce in fourth. Jacob Douglas somehow getting back to 5th. He was 9th at the restart. Sam Corey 6th. Evagores Papasavas 2nd to 18th to 7th. He gets back to P7. Avery Towns up into the 8th spot. Al Morey, who spun on the opening lap, ends up in 9th. And Maxwell Jamieson in 10th. Horrible finish for Matt Clark back in 13th. Garcia 14th. Elliot Cox, who ran 6th all race long. What a great drive. And he had nowhere to go. Literally had to just pull off the side and stop. I doubt there's anything wrong with the car of Cox. I think in fact, he finished the race, so he obviously was able to go, as did Clark, as did Garcia. They were able to get rolling once again. No damage to any of those cars. Just slight contact coming through turn number 3, and again, that happened on the concrete inside as well. No grip at all.
The drama turned to tragedy very quickly for Matt Clark and Max Garcia, too, who had climbed all the way up through the field from the start of the race, who ends up falling back on the last lap with Elliot Cox, who looked like he was going to at least finish his weekend with a solid run and something positive to move forward with 5th. He winds up finishing 15th. But how about Nico Christodoulou?
Wow.
Gets the ride for this weekend, comes away with the victory in race number 2.
Yeah, big one for VRD Racing. Christodoulou runs for their sister team over in Europe in the GB3 series. A one-off, the opportunity to come over here and run with VRD. Dan Mitchell, I'm sure, will be thrilled with the win for Christodoulou for sure. For Simon Sykes, though, again, all he had to do was survive that last lap. Second place in points. Again, the driver in second in the championship, Nikita Johnson finishing back at 18th position. So Sykes will, again, stretch that margin significantly. He's going to have at least a 60-point lead heading in to Portland in the season finale of the triple header. So all but done right now, the championship for Simon Sykes. This driver here, though, when you come, the maple leaf on the helmet for Nico Christodoulou. A win on home soil. There's Dan Mitchell. Christodoulou winning here in the streets of Toronto. That's the way to get it done. Any Canadian wants to win here in Toronto. There's Jacob Loomis as well, who runs the USF Juniors team. Brandon Graham as well. Huge victory here for Nico Christodoulou. Big win here in Toronto. Simon Sykes coming home in second. Lockie Hughes will join them on the podium, folks. Those of you tuning in on the broadcast here in the USF Pro Championships app or YouTube channel, stay tuned. We'll be right back with Championship Victory Lane presentations.
It's your Uncle Cooper. Sure, once in a blue moon, you might need your tires for hauling a horse in a hailstorm. But most days, you're gonna need your tires for tougher things, like teaching your sister's kid how to parallel park. Thankfully, these Cooper and Duramaxes aren't just tough, they're everyday tough. Okay, there's a lot of improvement. Go with the Coopers. Cooper!
One of the calling cards of the USF Pro Championships presented by Cooper Tires is exciting wheel-to-wheel racing. And you can watch every lap on the USF Pro Championships app and YouTube channel. But if you want to go in deeper, check out our mini documentary series, The Climb, brought to you by Discount Tires. This new episode dropping now, covering everything that happened at the USF 2000 and Pro 2000 races at Mid-Ohio. Nothing more stressful than a final lap trying to win your first race in a program like USF 2000 with a veteran driver, 3-time winner on the season, and potential championship contender hot on the gearbox. This is where you get it. You have to make the move coming out of the keyhole. This is where it's going to happen. They'll work their way down the back straightaway. He is right up on the gearbox, coming down to start finish. Trying to get his first win here in USF 2000. Out of the final couple of corners.
We're like any normal family. We just get shorter wait times because we buy and book online at discounttire.com.
So easy.
Which gives us more time for things like
Come on, Mom.
Ready? And it's all thanks to Kyle. Thank you. Get 30% shorter average wait time when you buy and book online at discounttire.com.
Let's get you taken care of.
Indeed, folks, welcome down here to Victory Lane as we get things underway, as we've capped off this event here for the drivers in USF2000, a wild one in tough conditions. We watched these drivers work their way forward, some from the very tail of the field, and a huge victory, of course, for a young Canadian here on home soil, part of the Cooper Tires Grand Prix of Toronto. Three guests from Cooper Tires are going to help pass out some awards. Let's start with the driver coming home very nicely on the final lap into third spot, Lockie Hughes for J. Howard Driver Development, finishing in third. Mike Rennie will bring our trophy in here for Lockie. Great job. Lockie Hughes coming in that third spot. Great job for him. Well done. Finishing in second place. Huge job here to be able to get the points he needs. The gap right now, massive, likely over 60 points heading to Portland for the finale. For Pabst Racing coming home in second, Simon Sykes. Simon Sykes coming home in that second position. Great job for Simon. Alex Uzelak will come in here to bring that P2 trophy for Simon. Well done. Huge points for Simon here, having led. Just a little bit of a mistake, dropped him from first to second, but the points still fantastic. Although the driver able to capitalize on that issue, then handle it on the final lap. What a huge win. Always great to see a Canadian win here in Toronto, folks. Put your hands together from VRD Racing. Our winner is Nico Christodoulou. Hop down here with me first. Obviously, running in Europe throughout the year, you get a chance to come and run at the hometown in Toronto. First, tell me, to win here, to race here as a Canadian, how's it feel?
Yeah, I mean, as my first time racing a car in Canada, I mean, it's a really good experience, especially on home soil. I don't live too far, so it's good to be home. And, yeah, I enjoyed the rain. I was really hoping it would rain today because that's pretty much all the weather we get out there. And, yeah, I just took advantage of the wet weather tires and took when he made the mistake in turn 3, I was able to get in the inside and then drive away.
Tell me about the team a little bit. Who do you want to thank?
Yeah, I'd love to thank Dan, Russ, Brandon. I'd love to thank my dad. I'd love to thank all my sponsors and the whole VRD team for helping this weekend happen.
Well done. Get on top of the podium. We got a P1 trophy for Nico Christodoulou. Gus Leota, the general manager of Goodyear Canada, giving us a hand here, passing out that P1 trophy for Nico Christodoulou. We mentioned in the broadcast it was all about putting the pressure on, trying to see if he can't force Simon Sykes into a mistake. A minor error for Simon, just missed the braking zone a little bit. Drops him to second spot. Nico able to capitalize and come up the inside. And then expertly handled that restart as well, down into turn number 3 to get a fantastic victory for Dan Mitchell and the VRD crew. Nico Christodoulou, who runs in the GB3 series. We talked about the fact that that program regularly runs in wet conditions. A lot more rain, of course, in the European events, the Great Britain events, and he has done a great job over there. And again, for him to come here to be able to run on home soil as well, right? The Torontonian lives in Vaughan, to be able to have the chance to race here in front of friends and family, and again, step to the top of the podium as well. Amazing. Good job for Simon Sykes and for Lockie Hughes as well. Put the pressure on throughout the race. The contact in the end there between Garcia and Clark. Cox with nowhere to go. Shook things up in terms of the overall top 5. One more race still to come here for the USF Pro Championships as part of the Cooper Tires Grand Prix of Toronto. USF Pro 2000 to wrap up their doubleheader here as well. Michael D'Orlando, a big win yesterday in tricky conditions. I would expect, based on the blue sky we're starting to see, that we will be dry by the time those drivers roll out for their race here a little later on here this morning. But it is going to be a fantastic day here at the Honda Indy Toronto. A little damp this morning, but it's going to be gorgeous here midday and throughout the afternoon. The Honda Indy Toronto drivers, the NTT IndyCar Series drivers will put on a fantastic show for you. But these are the future stars of this program. We talk about it all the time. This is where you start if you want to work your way into IndyCar, and we hope to see all 3 of these drivers running here at IndyCar one day soon. All right, guys, drop those trophies down. You can throw them in front of you. Champagne is ready to roll. It is time to wrap things up for USF 2000. Grip it and rip it, boys. Celebration time here for USF 2000. Nico Christodoulou with the win. Hometown boy gets it done. We will wrap things up for the broadcast, folks. Those of you tuning in, come on back for USF Pro 2000 later today on behalf of Anderson Promotions and Cooper Tires. My name's Rob Howden. Bye for now.
Great kickoff to our Sunday here at the Honda.